Welcome back. We're discussing possible scenarios for the relationship between Tehran and Washington under the upcoming Obama administration. Joining me is Dr. Hushang Amirahmadi, founder of the American-Iranian Council, who's joining us from London, and Dr. Hossein Askari, the Iran professor of international business and international affairs at George Washington University. As we get back to questions, let's get Fiji on the line. Reginald, good you could join us by phone. What would you like to ask?
Yes, I was going to ask about why is it that the United States can't realize that it's living on a series of mistakes. It's mistake with Iraq, for instance. Everybody is saying they made a mistake. Can it sometimes look at its own mistakes? And
okay.
It's repeating the life of a Roman Empire, sort of. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much for that, Reginald. Dr. Askari, this issue of America being intractable in its position when it comes to Iran, is that the case, or is there really some scope for change?
I think that America has a hard time getting over the hostage-taking. We have to be able to put the past behind us. I don't think America can be a prisoner of its past. And it's the same thing about Iran. Iranians also have a hard time forgetting the 1953 overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh. They also have a hard time getting over the fact that the United States and the Western powers helped Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons and other things. But both sides have to get over this. There is no choice.
A long-lasting blood feud.
No, I don't. I hope not. I sincerely hope not.
Interesting, Dr. Askari, on the issue of Iran, how Iran might be pressured to change. The economy in Iran must be suffering with the oil revenues dropping so severely recently. How is the economic crisis that's affecting the world also taking an impact on Iran, and how it might affect its politics?
Well, you see, I think that when you look at Iran today, in my view, Iran is more vulnerable than it's ever been since the Iranian Revolution, even during the Iran-Iraq War. And the reason is this, that Iran's economy has been totally mismanaged. Iran, I believe, is in dire straits. Iran's reserves ought to have gone up during this period of high oil prices, but they've in fact gone down. And with oil, if oil in fact does stay in the $30 to $40 range, which by my estimate, since this is a business I know a little bit more about, is that in fact it will maybe even fall below $30. I think Iran is going to be in very, very tough shape.
We've got Amir on the line from Sierra Leone. Amir, what would you like to ask? Amir? Oh, Amin, sorry. Amin in Sierra Leone. Go ahead. Go ahead, Amin.
Hello?
Hi, go on.
Yeah.
Your question, please.
I would just like to ask this question.
Yeah. Please go.
Why is it the USA people or leaders are looking forward to solving the problem and not the United Nations as a whole?
It's an interesting point, Dr. Amirahmadi. The United Nations seems to have been left out of this to some degree. What role perhaps could the UN play under an Obama administration? Could the Obama administration be a little more inclusive when it comes to what the UN could achieve?
Well, unfortunately, the UN, through the National Security Council, has already been, polluted in this process. Let's put it that way. Iran is at in the UN and National Security Council, and the council is imposing sanctions on Iran. So, whatever legitimacy the UN had in Tehran, unfortunately, I have to say, has been lost to a large extent. So. UN could have helped significantly. I think as long as Iran is at the UN Security Council, its role will be limited, and only could play that role if that the Iran dossier, the file, will go back to the IAEA. I'm not sure that will happen. So I'm not very hopeful that the UN can play a major role. I think the US-Iran relation really goes back to the US and Iran, and perhaps to some extent indirectly Israel. But I think the bilateral issue between the two countries are the only hope that could lead to a breakthrough. But again, as I said, for that the US needs to really make certain conceptual changes toward Iran, and particularly in its view and assumptions about Iran. For example, the US assumes, and the world actually assumes, that a strong Iran is a dangerous Iran. Yeah. This is obviously a wrong assumption. Iran hasn't invaded any country in the last 250 or so years, and that then a strong Iran has been a stabilizing anchor state as opposed to a destabilizing Iran, state. In fact, a weaker Iran has been destabilizing. And I do believe that if Iran had not been weakened by the revolution in 1979, Saddam would have not invaded Iran. And then if Saddam had not had that war with Iran, would have not gone after Kuwait. And if that had not happened, the U.S. would not be in the mess it is in Iraq. So in a way, the Middle East is in a mess, at least the Persian Gulf area, because Iran is a weaker state.
Okay, let's have Mohammed on the line from Virginia. Mohammed, what would you like to ask?
My question is, first thing, let me talk. You have a nice show.
Thank you.
My question is, why Iran cannot have a nuclear plant when we know that Israel have a bomb, nuclear bomb? Nobody talk about Israel. Everybody talking about Iran, Syria. Why is this? Is this a ban from our administration?
Mohammed, I'm going to ask Dr. Askari this issue. I mean, again, the issue of Israel perhaps looms here. What role do you think Israel might have on the Obama administration? Could it have the same kind of influence it had under the Bush administration on the way the region shapes up?
Well, I think, the reality is Israel has a great deal of influence in the United States. This is something that's not going to be changed by Iran or by anybody else. As my friend Dr. Amir Ahmadi said, that what is important is the bilateral U.S.-Iranian relation, but there are also other relations here which I think impact that. He mentioned Israel, but I think there's also Syria's relations with Iran and Syria's relations with Israel and with the United States. I think also is the relation with Afghanistan. That also matters in this whole thing. Iran's relations with Pakistan. I think there are a lot of relationships, and that's why I think what Mr. Obama is trying to do is that he's not going to appoint one person for one country's relations. He's going to have envoys that are going to try to oversee this. This is my guess from what I read in the paper.
I wonder, though, Dr. Askari, with the way Israel has been positioned or has positioned Iran as a threat, and the US has positioned Iran as a threat, when it comes down to the reality, from your perspective, is Iran a serious threat to Israel, or is it certainly a certain amount of posturing on the part of Iran?
In my view, the Iranian military, from what I have seen, and I'm not a military person, but just looking at what has happened, is no match for Israel's air power, for its conventional forces. I think it's a great deal of posturing, but I think what frightens Israel is really the influence that Iran has much more with Hezbollah and with Hamas. That's it, I believe.
Dr. Amir Ahmadi, if I could get you in here, sir, and ask you about the relationship between President Ahmadinejad and the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. What do they see eye to eye on the way things should move forward, and could that influence the relationship with America under an Obama administration?
Yeah, well, there are two pieces of the issue here. One, of course, who Mr. Obama needs to speak to. The reality is in Tehran, the man in charge is Mr. Khamenei, the leader, and everybody else works for him. And at the moment, obviously, he's happier with Mr. Ahmadinejad than it has been with anybody before him. But then again, there is a serious election coming soon in June, and that election will be contested very seriously by many forces in the country. And but from my perspective, I believe that the Obama administration should not get involved into Iran's domestic affairs. In the past, the U.S. administrations have done that, and it has been wrong. It has backfired. I think the U.S. should indeed take Iran's regime as a whole and speak to the regime and ask for the leadership to come forth with authority that is needed here to deal with the matter. So I think Mr. Ahmadinejad will have to go through this election. He will have a hard time to get through this. But I don't think that the Obama administration needs to wait for the results.
Okay, let's get a quick question from Italy. Samuel, what would you like to ask? Very quickly, please.
Yeah. My question is why is the Iranian government spending billions and billions of dollars?
Yeah. Go ahead.
To promote terrorism and nuclear armament when its citizens Suffering back home in Europe and America.
Okay, if I got that, I mean, I guess what Samuel's asking Dr. Askari is about Iran's role in the region. But let me ask you, he was asking about the people of Iran. How much backing does the current government have of the people, do you think?
Well, you see, I think that as your questionnaire said, he's absolutely correct. That in Iran, by the way, I think he's wrong, that they don't spend that much money on the nuclear and on arms. What has happened in the case of Iran, the money has been wasted on subsidies, and there's been a massive capital flight from Iran into Dubai. And as a result, income distribution in Iran is, I believe, worse than it was maybe under the Shah. And so economically, people are really stressed out, the average person.
Dr. Askari, I want to thank you. Dr. Amir Ahmadi, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, and hope we get to speak about this.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. On the next show, we look at the efforts of Holland's Princess Maxima and the UN Advisors Group in ensuring access to banking services to the world's poorest citizens. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.